Okay, guys, that is the 5-minute timer. Also, we'll just share with you that if you do have questions that you want to write down, make sure you can do that today in the chat box. Make sure you always reference the page number first, first in your question. If you bury it in the question, it'll just be overlooked. This is how we get it done, and we'll start getting some of the questions that you guys may have for um, today as we're going through it, but I don't want it to be a distraction for you either, so just bear that in mind. I always recommend write the question, write the page number down, just write the keyword down, and then you can later gather your thoughts after the session's over and start formulating your questions. A lot of the questions also, guys, just to let you know, do get answered in the entirety of the presentation. So I wouldn't scramble to write down questions that might just get answered afterwards. That's why I always recommend after the session is over is when it's best to go back and review your notes and see what questions you might still have lingering. With that said, we're going to start the power play section on page 270. This section rather, sorry, is about 55 minutes or so, so it's close to an hour. Then we will be taking a 15-minute break. Let you get a little bit more time for a break in between that and the third section afterwards. So bear that in mind as well. And last but not least, um, uh, just looking at a couple of questions that are coming in here. With that said, we'll get to sharing with you when it is that Mark will be having some of the Q&A, and we'll update you with that as well. So let's get started with Power Play on page 270.
Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to the 2020 Master Trader Program. So I have a special guest here today. Mark Ritchie's with us. I gave David Ryan some time off. Each year at the Master Trader Program, when we do this live, at least in the past couple of years, this particular section that we're going to be doing here, I usually do on my own, and Mark Ritchie has actually come on stage and helped me with this particular power play. We're going to be talking about the power play today. I told you that we were going to cover two scenarios, technical scenarios. One was the magnitude play. That was the primary base. We already went over that with myself and with David Ryan. And now we're going to talk about the power play. One of the reasons why I like to have Mark Ritchie on in this particular section is that he really loves the power play and has gotten really good at playing this particular setup. It's got some rules of his own that we're going to share. So want to go over that. And Mark has a tremendous track record, not only over the last 10 years, but also more recently, which I'll talk about in a little while. But Mark Ritchie came to the very first Master Trader Program in 2010 and has been with me on Minervini Private Access as a client for the entire 10 years, and now is one of our staff members that helps with the weekly sessions, study sessions, and answering questions. So, Mark, thanks a lot for being here.
Great to
Appreciate
be
it.
here.
Coming from Chicago. Um, so we're going to go over the power play. And first, I want to define it. Let's define the power play. This is essentially a high tight flag, which you might have read about in William O'Neill's book. And in my book, I call it the power play. It's a little bit, I have a few different rules than the O'Neill rules, but the beginning to define it and to qualify as a power play is essentially the same. You need an explosive price move on big volume. The bigger the volume, the more explosive, the better. And you want the stock to be up 100% or greater in less than 8 weeks. So that you might say, wow, that's already a big move, but that's exactly what we're looking for. And this run up very often is on you can get it on news from earnings. You can get it some type of new news development. Maybe they got a new contract, company got a new contract, an FDA drug approval, litigation, a resolution of litigation, speculation of resolution of litigation, new product announcements, things like that. Or And some of the ones that I actually like the best are on no news at all, what I call unexplained strength. So from that point, you're not going to buy just because the stock's up 100% in 8 weeks or less. You need the stock still to move sideways and consolidate. And in this particular instance, this is where we want the consolidation to be relatively tight and relatively short. So it usually will go sideways and consolidate for anywhere between 10 and 12 days to as much as 3 to 6 weeks and not correct more than 20%. Let me show you what that looks like. So Quality Systems is a stock that I traded, as many of these are, of course, about 95% of everything that I show you during this entire Master Trader program are stocks that I actually traded at this particular moment. So you can see here, if you apply that same abbreviation for the VCP, it's a 4-week 25 by 5 3T, so it could basically have 3 time frames. It contracted several times. That final T, if you will, or contraction is 5%. The deepest is 25%. I know I said it doesn't correct more than 20%. I will let it go as much as 25%, especially if it's lower priced. 20% is, again, like I said, there's a few things that are a little bit different. This is one of them than the high tide flag rules. And one is that I let it go 25%. I've seen some in the 21, 22, 23% range, but anything more than 25% in the deepest correction is too excessive. If you see here, you had the earnings on the table and you had accelerating earnings from negative earnings to 150% to 177%, and you got the same volume clues where you got the really low volume, and then whammo, here comes the 1-2 punch. You get the big tower coming in there on the breakout. Stock went up 126% in 66 days. Mark, what do you like about the power play? Why do you? Because you really gravitate towards these power plays and tend to really try to look for them and scout for power plays quite often. What attracts you to this particular setup?
Well, the results is the short answer. I think what I like best about though is that often a good power play just tends to work right away. This is a really good example, like you said. Wham comes right out, and then what I've found is usually the best ones, and this is from my own trading, not, but it lines up with your work as well, that they tend to average about 1% a day or higher even. Meaning if you're in the name for 20 days, you're a good power play, you're up 20% or more.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. Those are the results. When we look at the power plays that work out, the ones that are successful, we found that they generally go up between 1 and 3% a day, sometimes even 4% a day on average over a period of the life, the maturation or the life cycle of that particular move coming out of the power play, which can last, the grand majority of that, sometimes is just a number of weeks or months sometimes. But again, if you are, if you see it, it's moving up for 30, 40 days, you could easily see a 30% to 100% move in that period of time. You can see right here 126% in 66 days, so approximately 2% a day when it's all said and done. So as Mark just pointed out, he's finding in his own anecdotal evidence that that's what he sees, and that's what the numbers bear when we go back and we study these things. Now here's a big mover. This went up almost 1,000% in 19 months. I traded this. You can see where I'm buying. Same exact rules apply. Nothing changes. Just like I told you before, everything that I tell you previous applies going forward through this entire workshop. And you can see the buy point. It even has a very tight, let me get my pointer here on my spotlight. You can see there's just a 1-day pause right there, and it comes out very nicely. You get the 1-2 punch with the volume. And again, this is going into the holiday too, so you're going to have light volume. This is right around Christmas. I don't know if that might have even been just before Christmas. So it was right around Christmas, but 947% in 19 months. That's a really successful power play, of course. Let's see here, another one. So Taser, this is another one that I bought coming out, and you had a few other opportunities actually. If you take a look right here, I'm going to show you something in a little while, a PRTS, one that we recently traded. Mark traded it and I traded it too. Coming out here this looks very similar to it right here. And you'll start to get these precedents in your mind where you'll see something and you go, hey, that looks like, XYZ in 1992, or in your case, it might be 2020. But then you get another little setup right here, and then you get this setup here. There was more chances to buy it too, but this stock went up 329% in just 16 weeks. I made a big move on this, about 100. I think I nailed about 140% on this, coming from this. From this setup right here, very tight. You can see really important is that there's VCP action within, even in this short base, you still have the VCP action. Mark, do you notice that, are you looking for that VCP action even in these shorter bases?
Absolutely. And then especially that, I mean, look at it's the volume contraction too. You see that high volume on that left-hand side, the volume as it's running up. And then once it starts to contract, that volume comes right out, which tells you if buyers show up, they're going to push prices higher.
Right. That low volume is the key to setting up for an explosive price move. Hey, Mark, I don't know, but do you have the annotate toolbar? I don't know if you're armed with that, but if it says annotate, and you got like the spotlight, and you have these pointers and things if you want to try them. If you can. Let's see here. Yeah, so let's take a look another one, Pharmacyclics, which this went on to be a huge, enormous winner, which I wish I had held a little more of this. I had made a nice move on it, though, and this was actually breaking out the day that the market made a low. It was really impressive strength. So I'm buying it coming right out here. And again, remember that these prices are adjusted for splits. So even if they're down there and they say it's a $1 stock or $2 stock, that's not the price it was trading at. But you can see, again, very efficient too. These power plays, when they work out, the natural reactions, they happen, like Mark said, very quickly. The gains are quick, and you're able to compound. So, Mark, you know something about compounding.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into your longer term track record, but just this year alone, Mark is up about 150% in his account, and it's not on a $5,000 account. He's up $2.5 million. So that's real money, and that's started with $1 million change. So he's done really, really well. A few things I want to point out. You traded some power plays, obviously, which we're going to show a few of them that you and I both traded this last year. In his performance, and we did a discussion with Mark on our platform with our members, and a few points that I wanted to highlight here and let you guys know as well is that there was no one stock that really accounted for this, this return of his this year. And also his position sizing, which we're going to get into position sizing later. Maybe I'll even have you back for that section, Mark. His position sizing, no position was larger than 25%, and the grand majority of his positions were 10 to 15%. So it wasn't like, he put all his money into one trade and it happened to work out. This is the result of managing the risk reward relationship over and over, making really sound decisions, quality decisions, and managing the risk reward relationship. And the other thing too is that, he's not doing anything different. That 98% of all the stocks that he traded were the stocks that we have on our platform, and stocks that I traded. We're not like seeing some secret thing that, we don't share with each other, or we don't share with our members or share with the world. I tell a lot of people on Twitter exactly what I'm doing, usually a little bit after I do it. But anyway, so let's take a look at some more of these power plays. And I want to show you how they set up here.
Comment on that one just for fun too. This was one of the first trades I ever saw you make, and this was before Twitter. You were doing just a few things on StockTwits, and because I remember the market was looking pretty crappy when you put this one on. Yes. And I remember it was like a $6 or $7 stock. The reason I mentioned a couple reasons. One, I was like, what is this guy thinking buying this never heard of company that's coming out? You know what I mean? It looks way extended. Keep in mind, we only see where the arrow is right there. You don't know that it's, we're always making this point. We're doing this in real time. And I'm thinking so I didn't take it. And then the thing just blasts off. And it was on my screen, and I remember going, because I wound up buying it through that next pivot on this chart. It's around $6.
Right.
And but that was kind of what like got my attention. What's ironic is, a full 10 years later, I sent a $6 or $7 power play that looked really, really good your way, and you got grief from all the members saying, "What's this guy thinking? $6, $7 stock," but it was perfect,
That's
and then
right.
we blasted right off.
That was which one?
Nautilus.
Nautilus. Yeah, no, NLS, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, NLS. Yeah, Mark pointed out NLS. It ended up working out really well, and it was a low price stock. And everybody's like, "What are you doing? Buying these low price stocks?" You say you don't like low price. Well, on the power plays, sometimes I will, and we did a few this year that worked out. Parts was one of them, which we'll show in a second. Yeah, this stock here was either $7 or $8 or $9. It was low price. I remember. Yeah. And this is a decade ago. But this and it turned out to be a gigantic winner too. It went up even much more than
It
this.
was bought out in the $260 or $80 range. I remember about 5 or 6
Yes.
years later, it was a monster.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yeah. They ended up having, an amazing product and so forth. So another thing to point out, and again, Mark has, mastered a lot of these techniques, and really honed his skills down. And we buy sometimes in these power plays, we'll actually use the low cheat and the cheat that I showed you earlier. And this is a perfect example of I'm actually buying at this little low cheat, which is kind of creative, but I very often will try to buy coming off the lows of the bases in with these power plays. And then sometimes you get an adjunct or another pivot point that sets up. I either add to my position, and this one did exactly that. It went inside for 2 days and then whammo. I mean, this just came out really strong. Again, 143% in just 9 months. So that's a really great gain. Anything you can share about using the cheat and the low cheat, also with power plays?
Yeah, well, and those, especially some of those, like you said, that's the spot that a lot of people ignore, or it would seem it's not doesn't look quite as obvious, and you may not get another setup if it's truly powerful. Or even this one sort of paused another 2 days and went inside. You maybe could have played it again, but some of them, the low cheat is the only shot you have because they're that powerful in some of the best situations.
Exactly. And that's why, like I said earlier, it's like getting on the elevator, the third floor. Maybe you're not trying to get on the first floor, but maybe the third or the fifth floor, and you're trying to go to the ninth, 10th, or 20th floor, or whatever. So the low cheat is maybe the third floor, the cheat is the fifth floor. And maybe, if it forms a handle or forms a pivot near the highs, that might be, the seventh or eighth floor. And so we're always trying to find the soonest spot to buy, of course. So let me show one that we bought here, and this is one that I bought, and Mark bought as well. We traded it. I know I can't remember exactly where you traded out of it, but I traded out of it into this first move up. It was like 30 or 40% move. And then it reset here. We actually highlighted it right here, took off again. And the whole move was about 170% in 14 weeks. So this came out really nicely, just ripping out here. I think there's something I need to point out though, and some people might say, well, I see the 200-day moving average is in a downtrend or just flattening out here. That's not in the stage 2 uptrend. So, and again, this is something that we'll go over with when we look at MarketSmith and look at some of the screens. These are what we call early turns, and I have a 1-month screen that is actually in MarketSmith as well. And that's with the power plays. What happens is they move so quickly from a dormant stage to a power play setup that they don't give the long-term moving averages enough time to turn up. So you don't have to require that long-term trend is in a confirmed stage 2 uptrend, meaning having 5 months of uptrend. It can just be 1 month. Sometimes it's even a little bit less. But in this particular case, this was really quite an early setup, and I was a little concerned about it when Mark and I talked about it. It was setting up, but it ended up working out great. And then you got another setup, and I think this right here really makes Mark's point right over here, where you don't get anything but the cheat, right? This setup right here, and the only setup that you get, let me find my line here, is right going through here, right? And then it just comes ripping right out of there. So you only get the cheat area of the low cheat.
And
Um,
if you look at this, that next setup is, is almost another power play. Stock went from 15 to 30 in about 4 weeks, and then only pulled in about 20, 22, 23% there for that second low cheap Mark pointed out. So it's almost a power play on top of a power play,
yeah.
just showing you how strong the situation is.
I personally would say this is the power play because if it wasn't for you alerting me on this one, I probably would have not seen it or passed on it because it wasn't in much of an uptrend at all. It was so early that I might have passed on it. I don't know. I mean, things were going pretty good though, and the market was good. So when things are going really good and the market's good, I'm more lenient and I might I might bend the rules a little bit. And with this, it wasn't really bending the rules. It was just making a choice if you wanted to buy something, that was coming out that early. But you ended up getting that next setup as well. And as David pointed out in previous sessions, you get usually several opportunities. Now, power plays don't give you as many opportunities usually as a bigger secular move from big bases. These are pretty quick. They come out and usually get one or two chances to get the best move. Mark, quick before I forget, you have some rules about you've had your share of power plays and left your share of money on the table like I have too. Many times we get a hold of these things, we don't realize what a tiger we have by the tail. We take our little 15, 20, 25%, and then the thing goes up and doubles or triples. So you came up with a few rules that I think are very sound as far as how to handle a power play. What are they?
Yeah, sure. So, and these are born out of studying my own results. So it was after the 2015, I want to say, Master Trader program. So I had 5 or 6 years of, just full years of trading. I went through and I went back and studied every single power play. So one of the benefits, obviously, of tracking every trade, and then I just was looking for, you know, a factor model, if you will. So what I noticed is that my win rate was the same, just about the same as in other setups. Just below that 50% for me, around mid to high 40s. Uh, but I was leaving money on the table generally, and especially in the early days, I was quick to kick something out, 2 to 1, that type of a thing. And so I just developed the rule after studying everything that if I had forced myself to not take profits into strength, say at 10, 12, 15%, which is what I was doing, because the best ones, so the rules I came up with were: don't sell into strength for below generally 20%, or minimum, if I had a really tight stop, I might do 15 if you're still, say, at 4 to 1, but I'm looking for a 4 or 5 to 1 generally. So if my average stop is 5, then it's 20 to 25%. And when I say into strength, meaning when the trade is working, if it's working, I'm not selling at 10 or 12, because especially the ones that come out quickly or come out really nicely, like we've seen in some of these examples, they put you under no pressure. Those are the ones that I want to definitely hold for that 4 to 5x move. So 20, 25%, and then ideally try and hold a piece even for 3 to 4 weeks, 20 days ideally, because the really good ones will go up, as Mark said, sometimes maybe 2 or 3% a day. Well, over 20 days, you're looking 40, 50, maybe 60% in 20 days. That's a really powerful move. Now, if it gets really extended, then I just kind of start, leaking out shares as it goes up. And then the other rule is I make them stop me out. I'm not going to choke. I'm not going to choke off the most powerful situation potentially at, say, a break even. I'd rather take a loss, because there were 1 or 2 times where stock comes out 6, 7, 8%, pulls back, and I choke it off at even or down 1 or 2%, only to see the thing, sort of just put in that little shakeout to the breakout and then just turn around and rip. And it's just not worth losing a position in something so powerful. I'd rather take a loss than miss out on a 25, 30, 35% gainer.
Yeah, when you say take a loss, you mean your stop, which is relatively
Of
tight.
course, of
Yeah,
course.
and so you're not so quick to move your stop up to break even just because the stock might be up 5 or 10%.
Exactly right.
Right. Yeah. Like we would normally do with maybe a lesser powerful play, we might bring the stop up a little quicker if it's up maybe 2 times our risk. So we risk 5%, let's say it's up 10 or, or 6 or 7 or 8%, and it's up 12 or 15%, we move our stop to break even. So again, giving the benefit of the doubt to, the probabilities, the probabilities are for a larger move with something like this. So then, okay, and you have a minimum number of days, generally 20. So, and that goes, again, this all goes right with the numbers, with the facts, because the first move in power plays usually happens about 10 to 20 days. You get that first good, meat of the, the first leg up, then you'll get some type of natural reaction, pullback, whatever it is. But I find that over a period of 40 to 60 days, if you can make it to 40 or 60 days, you can really get a big move, and sometimes even, longer than that, of course. Now, here's one that we just recently we traded. I can't remember if you traded this too.
Good.
But yeah, I know I know I can speak for you as well as myself that we definitely left some dollars on the table on this one.
Mhm.
This went up 150% in 6 days, and we just traded this just not long ago, here back in July. This is one I believe I put on Twitter after I bought it. But what happened was this actually set up in with a cheat area right here, and I was watching this, and I can't remember if we put it on our buy alert list, but it broke out and I didn't buy it, and I was like, oh, well, I just made a huge error. This thing's just going to take off, and I missed it, and it was perfect. Why didn't I buy this? And then it started tightening up. So this tightening phase, I was watching it and praying, going, give me a nice pivot here, man. Give me another chance at this. And it did. And so I came in here, and that's where it really, just look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days in a row. It made the whole gain in 6 days, and every day was an up day, just blasted off to the moon. This one here, you bought it same time I bought it, coming out
I
here?
bought it the cheat. I bought the cheat,
Oh, you
and
did buy the cheat. Oh, okay.
yeah,
I can't
and
remember.
it's the exact same rules. You look exactly what you talked about in that first 10 to 20 days. And this is where, when I get 25, 30%, I'm always selling a piece. And here you could just trail it up. And I think I think I kicked most of it out at 40 or 50 and then watched it go up another 50 in 2 more days. But the volume was really, it was just classic. You had, even the cheat came out in 1 day, right near the highs, put in the handle, and then the volume just dried up the whole way.
Yeah, if you come down here and we look at the volume was, you can see right here, it dries up real nice, right? And then, let's see if I can get a, here's a tool right here. Let's try that. Oh yeah, there you go. That looks good. So, and then the volume comes out on the breakout. Look at that contrast, huge contrast. And then the exact same thing, we get the exact same thing happens again. Here's the volume comes way down. Look how it comes way down. And then again, look at this volume. This big breakout, just perfect, absolutely perfect. You get the 2 buy points. So, so you were in on the cheat area, and then you held through this base building phase, this handle phase, and then we're just sticking with it at that point. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And I had missed it, and I moved in here. Okay. Let's see here. So let's move. Now the reason I want to tell you the reason why, and here's the funny thing: knowing this and looking at this, it's amazing that I didn't buy it at this particular point in the cheat where you bought it, Mark. It's like you had this knowledge and not me, and you didn't. I'd even tell you about this, but this was a stock that I had missed back a while ago in 2000, I believe it was 14 or 15, and so this is a pharmaceutical company, very similar, right? Look how it sets up right there. As a matter of fact, I'll go back and forth. Take a look right here. Let me get my spotlight. See right here, it sets up, and here on this one, you see in a similar fashion. However, this one here had a big shakeout. It really, now I'm going to give you another little caveat that you sometimes could stretch the rules a little bit. And this is probably why I didn't buy this one. If you take a look here, it's at $14. It comes all the way down to $11. And that's a pretty big correction. That's more than 25%, right? But you see how it closes well right at the high? If you get 1 day down and it closes at the absolute high, and that's still within that 20%, you can stretch the rules on it. I mean, you really could. I probably was being a real stickler on this. I didn't buy it. And then look at this just come out. Another one that just comes out at 13 and a half-ish dollars and runs right up to 18 and a half. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like 8 or 9 out of 10 or 11 days up. And this goes up 70% in 55 days. So once again, see 1.5% or so per day. But yet having that knowledge that I missed this one and how it's set up, that was what had me watching this one here on, again, I didn't play it, but that was surprising that I didn't play that because I already had saw that. Let's see here. All right. So now this was the PRTS. This is the low priced one that we played this year, which worked out beautifully. I played this low price. When I do play a low price stock, it has to be really perfect, and really is going to have to compel me with really perfect technicals. Hopefully I got the fundamentals too, but if not, with power plays, I don't require the fundamentals. That's something else I think we should point out. With power plays, you can disregard the fundamentals. You see, here's why. When you have a stock that has a 99, 98 RS IBD ranking, it's gone up 100, 200% in 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it might be, 8 weeks or less. You can rest assured something's going on. Something positive is going on. It's just a matter if it's going to continue. If the stock is going to continue moving higher and if it's discounted it, but something is definitely going on positive. You don't need to see it in the fundamentals. The chart is strong enough. So when we take a look at this one, I mean, look at how tight this price action is, and it comes out absolutely perfectly. And you see the same rules apply. Breaks out, moves up 1, 2, 3 days, pulls in, natural reaction, tennis ball action, natural reaction, tennis ball action, all the way up to 81% in 26 days. A really nice, quick move. And again, this is how you maximize compounding, and this is how you rack up a 150% return, like Mark just did in a half a year. Any comments on this particular one?
Well, just to add to your point about it, one of the reasons I also like these kind of plays is they're in their own cycle, or they're really marching to the beat of their own drummer. These tend to even be less affected by general moves in the market. So, and actually, they're even better when you get a power play, say maybe, and there's a small correction, and then pivot sets up, because a lot of people are nervous to buy things, and you got something so strong that barely pulls in. To your point, something's going on. The price is getting ahead of really good fundamental information. Generally, and especially the untrained eye, they're scared. It looks too expensive. It's run too far, too fast. That's what you'll hear from anybody who's a novice at this kind of setup. They'll go, "I can't buy that. Look at the run it's at."
Right.
And guys like you and I are, salivating over those type of situations.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you're here because you're bringing up something that I was supposed to point out, and I had not. And that is 2 points Mark was making. One of them is that these are super high alpha situations. They are in their own cycle. They're in their own world. So 2 things. One, they're not affected by the market very much. They're going to do their own thing, and the market could correct, and usually it doesn't affect these stocks very much at all. So they're a little, Teflon stocks as far as the market's concerned, or resilient or resistant to the overall market. I like to trade these at all times, but if, let's just say, the market starts correcting and I start getting hit on some names and I maybe move into a heavy cash position and I'm sort of pulling back my exposure and my aggression, well, I tend to gravitate towards these setups and start looking for these setups, because these are the type of names that I can play even if the market is not so good, and they can still work out, because again, they're in their own world. Something's going on really, really important, and that's why the stock is so strong. And the other thing, why is it that we want the stock? I should probably point this out in the beginning too. Why do we want to keep the correction phase relatively small to 20% or less. When they've made such a big move, you would say, well, they probably, if you used an ATR or something or volatility, it should be more volatile. You should give it more room because it needs to correct all that gain. No, that's what tells you that something really big is happening when the stock makes this gigantic move and then fails to come in much. And there's not much profit taking, meaning that smart money that's buying that isn't selling. They're not selling. They're buying this stock and they're holding it, and there's not much supply because the future is bright. Something beneath the surface is changing. So another one here, ACIA, going back to 2016. Again, you can see some of them don't necessarily explode. I brought this example up because they don't all explode straight up. However, generally speaking, that's what you want to see, and those are the better ones. This one sort of just grinded itself up, but it happened over a very short period of time. You can see it's 5, 10, 15, I don't know, maybe 20 days or so that it doubled. And that's enough. That's enough. And then it got really tight for a few days right here and comes out. You get that reversal and then a big gap. And again, 85% in 20 days. So there's one that is giving you, 4% a day over 20 days. That's kind of usually the upper range, is that 4% a day. Sometimes they're more, but generally that, like we've pointed out, they're 1-2% a day, upwards to 3-4% a day. Now, here's a low price name. I think this was actually low priced at the time. I don't think this was adjusted for splits. I can't remember, but
That's correct.
Yeah, if memory
I
serves.
remember this one.
You remember this one? Yeah. So this one's in 2012. And again, you see the VCP, right? You see all the elements where we have not only VCP tightening, we have a cheat area. And then we have, what you want to call it, a handle. You want to call this a low cheat and a cheat, or a cheat and a handle. You've also got the volume characteristics. Look how the volume dries up in the pivot and then expands, dries up in the pivot and then expands coming out. Everything in every way, this is classic, absolutely classic VCP action, power play, 96% in 14 days. So this one really ripped out of there. And you can see a good portion of the double that it went up, or went up more than a double, actually. It went up from about $2 up to $7, but a big portion of this move happens in one day. And the grand majority of it is over 3 days. So extremely, extremely, extremely powerful coming out of there. And that's what you want to see. Power is the key with these. That's why they're called a power play. Okay, so another thing that I want to point out here is that you can get power plays sometimes subsequent to a primary base. I've seen a lot of stocks start off as a primary base, set up a nice big primary base, or even a smaller primary base, but a buyable base with all the characteristics of VCP, volume characteristics, and give you a buy point. And this actually gave you another buy point. Let me just get my little tool here. I'll give you. So you got that first buy point right here coming through here. You also got a pretty nice base right through here. You got yourself, it's a little creative, but you had a little cheat area right here. And then you got your power play set up right here. So you got a bunch of chances to get on board this, but you still had yourself a power play was the final setup here. And this stock went up. You can see a nice move. It comes out at about $58 or so and runs up to almost $90 in just, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 days. So again, this is the quick, fast moving nature that Mark was pointing out to, that is one of the reasons why he gravitates to these. So ADPT, another primary base, right? Comes out of a primary base and then later on doubles in a very short period of time and then gives you that little power play, 77% in 53 days. Same, giving you that similar result over a number of days there. Eagle Pharmaceuticals, you probably remember this one, Mark. This is one, or maybe you don't. I don't know. This is one that played in 2015, I think it was, and came out of this pretty well-shaped little base here. Had a nice move, 68% in 60 days, so a little over 1% in 1% per day. So here's a nice move, 200% in 90 days. This one I remember because I left a lot of money on the table on this one. Did
Same
you
here.
trade? Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you traded this one too.
Same here.
I remember we did highlight this and bought this on my platform at the on my Minervini private access platform for our members, and bought it from this load sheet right here. You can see there's a load sheet, and then it sets up a nice little pivot, and you had a few other additional buy points that you could have been buying this pyramid buying it. I bought it right here, and then I sold it into the first move up. You even tightened up right here pretty nicely. You could have bought it back even and traded around your position or added, and then it really started going. I mean, you had a bunch of chances here. This was a pretty big mover, not 200% in 90 days. Again, a very big mover coming out of here. But you see, again, you get the same scenario. You get the low cheat, you get the cheat area. I mean, it's just a classic in all senses, classic. Let's see. So another one from a low cheat. This was MFLX, of course. Not as big of a move, but in 38 days, 37%, about 1% a day. So you can, again, these are really nice because you can maximize compounding with such a short period of time. But again, classic coming out of that low cheat. So always look for that low cheat and the cheat area. GTHX, G1 Therapeutics. 38% in 25 days. So, close to a little less than 2% a day, maybe 1.75% a day out of the low cheat right here. And then you also set up another pivot right here. It's a little sloppier. You had a attempted breakout here, pulled back for a day, and then this is perfect. What Mark was saying. He's not gonna stop out real quick. If it pulls back maybe a little bit back into the base. He's gonna give it some room. Let's see what else. So pets. This is another one that I bought. I actually bought it and a little creatively off that little low cheat that was just a 1-day pause, and then I added to it 45% in 42 days again, so approximately 1% a day. I'm just going to go through these a little quicker now. So 52% in 4 days. That's a nice move. Just boom, 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 right up, coming out. Really classic. Here's your IPO, runs right up and gives you an immediate power play here, and that's again just a classic setup. Another one that if you got to look really carefully here, there's a little low cheat there, but it's only like a 1-day, what I call a pause pivot, and then it comes straight up that right side and doesn't really give you another chance. 40% in 8 weeks. So this took a little bit longer. This was Shutterfly, a little bigger name that maybe was a little more widely followed. A lot of times, you want to see these in names that you never heard of, names that are smaller, mid cap. Those are going to be some of your better ones. They're going to be in the names that you haven't heard of. You very seldom are going to see, Apple make a power play, or Google or something like that. Not that you can't, but even if you did, it might be a little more obvious. But again, they're usually in names that you haven't heard of. I want to show you a few examples of that, but also point something else out. Do you look, Mark? I always look at a weekly on every chart that I look at. I look at a daily and I look at a weekly, and sometimes I even look at a monthly to get longer term perspective. But a few things that I want to point out here, and one that you should always look for on a weekly. But do you look at a weekly at different time frames?
Yeah, with dailies and weeklies on everything.
Right. So with this particular stock, I want to show you the closes. When you look on the weekly in a power play, it's really important to look for tight closes. Tightness in price is one thing that you want to see. You want to see VCP. If it's really tight and it's only 10%, you don't need VCP. It's already tight enough. So you don't have to have VCP if the range is 10%. That's tight enough. But you want to see some tight closes. Generally, if there's 5 or 6 weeks, you'd like to see 3 or 4 of those weeks tight. You see how there's very little variance between the closes for these 4 weeks. And actually this week here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6 weeks, the closes are almost identical around $26. That's a very constructive sign. That's in addition, that will strengthen the setup. That'll tell you that, again, supply is not coming to market and that the line of least resistance is being formed, and there's a potentially explosive scenario. Cardtronics was a perfect example of a really small company that no one really heard of. This was in 2009 when everybody was talking about the ID system, and that we didn't have, for voter fraud and for immigration and all these things. And Cardtronics, I think they just got like a contract in Italy or something, and people were speculating that they were going to get, I think, a big contract maybe from the U.S. They had some card. I think there was like something like a badge or something on the card that was an identification. I can't remember. It was some technology on an identification card, and it was setting up. It was setting up perfectly. Look how tight. And again, you see the VCP action. I bought this coming right out here. It went up 100% over the next 12 months, and a nice move out of here. But what I want to show you is take a look at the weekly. Look and see the closes. You get some nice tight closes. Most of those closes are tight, and there's not a lot of volatility in here with your closes. And you can also see you're getting a lot of good closes. You don't have any closes down at the low. Most of the closes are good closes. So same thing that you're always going to look for. How better, more good closes than bad closes. Once the stock starts moving out, how many days are up versus down. Everything that we talked about previously is going to apply here. ADPT. Now, again, just a classic setup, nice and tight, comes out 77% in 53 days. Let me see, how many more do we have here? We only have a few more. Let me show you weekly on this. So see, very tight closes on the weekly. That's what you want to look for. ANAB. So this setup, you had your little low cheat right here. But then see, it took a little time. It still had to move sideways. And then you set up another pivot. It came out there. You could have actually added to it right there. But if you had not bought it over here, you could be buying it here. Sometimes a stock sets up and it might give you a buy point, but then it takes more time and the stock actually improves. The setup improves. Over more time, you get more tightening. The volume comes down even more. It quiets down, and you really, really get that nice structure building where you're getting that VCP and you're getting even maybe a better, tighter pivot. So it can improve. Just because it's set up earlier doesn't mean that that's your better buy point. Your buy point might actually be better weeks or a month later, and maybe even higher, maybe 5 or 10% higher. Again, you're not looking for the lowest price. You're looking for the right price. And the right price is buying the day that it's going to start moving and not turn back and stop you out. 96% in 4 months. Look at the closes, right? Very tight closes. You got 1, 2, 3 out of 4 weeks closing almost at the exact same price. So this is AMD, which I wish I held it from this point. This is a while back. It's in 2016. I have no idea what I would have had to go through to get to where it is today. But anyway, this is coming out of a little power play. And this is a pretty big company. I'm surprised I even bought this, because when I see these larger, big names coming out of power plays, usually I discount it and feel like it might be crowded and can't work. But AMD was kind of dead money for a while, and it came out of here, and I felt like most people wouldn't believe it, and it worked out really well. 190% in 18 months. I think I made 35% or 40% on it. I did not make that big move on it, but I got a nice little rip on it in a short period of time. Look at the closes. Again, pretty tight. You got some pretty tight close, especially in the last 3 weeks. 1, 2, 3, almost at the same price there. So again, you're going to see this over and over. One that was a really a nice one for me back. This goes all the way back to 2001. I bought this stock coming out of here, and I'll show it to you for a few reasons. One, it went up 160% in 17 days. It was great. It was in the throes of a bear market, in one of the worst bear markets that we ever had, but it was coming off the lows. You can see off the lows of the market. And again, they weren't the final lows, but it was a rally off the lows. The stock rallied up, and I'm going to show you right here. This is Emulex right here. And so a few things. One, this stock actually corrected quite a bit. It came down, I think it was, 30 or 35%, but it came, you can't see this. I know it's very, you can see it's very small, this chart, but this is the weekly. And if you look at the weekly, you see that weekly bar right there. I'll try to get something to show it to you. Right, that bar, well, the one next to it, actually. Hold on a second. Let's get this right. So yeah, this bar right here, look at the close. You see it comes down, it shakes out the lows, then closes all the way up at those highs. So again, if it's real quick, a 1-day shakeout comes ripping right back, and the weekly looks like this, then you can sometimes even play that. And I did. I played this. It came out beautiful. If you look at that stock and you look at here's another name that I don't even know how to pronounce this. Uh, Galectin Therapeutics. This is one that I had not traded this, but the chart is so similar. Look at the 2 weeklies here. I mean, if you were to take a look at, and I were to show you these real quick and just sort of flash them in front of you, and right here, you look at that right there, and you look at this right here. I mean, those are almost identical. Look at that price action, right? Very similar, especially that shakeout in the middle where it comes and has a good close, and then you tighten up for 2 days and you go inside for that last day, and then whammo, you come out. This went up 68% in just 3 days. So again, what you want to do is get models of these. I'm giving you this workbook and all these models so you can use these to go and compare stocks too. But you want to be building models of your own trades and trades that you see that maybe you don't trade, but they work out, they come out of power plays, and start having those precedents so you can see what a winning stock looks like and how it sets up. And you're going to find that there are similarities that are just amazing. And after a while, you're going to say, I can't believe the whole world isn't seeing this. How am I the only one seeing this? Mark, I mean, isn't it quite amazing on how similar all these charts set up? And when we go back and we go all the way back to the late 1800s to 1900, 1910, 20, 30, all the way till 2020, and the same thing's been happening, but most people don't see it. And so, and there's a few reasons. One is because, it takes skill. And two, you have to divorce your opinion. I mean, these stocks look scary. They're so high. They look so, they're in nosebleed territory. They made this big move. How could they possibly go up more? But, any final comments as far as, these things repeat over and over? I mean, you've been doing this now for, at least with me and where you started coming to the Master Trader Program in 2010, you've been doing this for 11 years now. And have you seen anything change? You ever asked me, anything change? You do anything different? Nothing's changed for me in 30 something years, but how about you in 11 years?
No, well, other than studying my own results and just trying to improve on your, on your own trading, or like you said, improving your eye as well. And that's, getting these, blueprints, imprints, like you talk about with the VCP. Well, sort of, the power play and these weeklies, they kind of have their own little blueprint, if you will, of what they look like. And every example you showed, the other point is that the train comes in on schedule. So your rule is that it's that 3 to 6 weeks. Well, you'll see people misidentify. Well, this is a power play because it doubled in 8 weeks, but it's been going sideways for 15 weeks. That's not, it doesn't mean it may not be a viable setup at some point, but in every setup example we just saw, it was in that consolidation range was in that 3 to 6 weeks, and the stock just comes zooming out. It's
right,
that
or less.
well, less, sure, and knowing, but that you're always talking about, it's that knowledge of knowing when the train is coming in on schedule is what can be so powerful, because you get yourself in a situation where okay, if this setup is going to work, I know what to expect. So yeah, I would say studying these, and no is the short answer in terms of nothing has changed really in 10 years. Tesla's a good example of this year. Tesla put in a power play, and even people in the media saying this is ridiculous. Tesla can't go any higher. The thing doubled. I didn't catch all that. I didn't catch all that, but that's a big name in this. But this is the same concept.
Yeah. And Mark's bringing up a good point. If it goes, 15, 20 weeks moving sideways, see, that negates the whole strength power theme, because the whole idea of this is that something's going on and it's moving so fast. This is like a bullet train, and it should continue pretty quickly. It doesn't correct much because it's under accumulation. And for that to make sense, it should continue higher in short order. So when we go back and we look at all the power play setups, and I've looked at these literally for 100 years, going all the way back to the early 1900s, they all work out in a similar fashion. Not exactly, but within a certain time frame, a certain percentage correction, certain amount of days that it takes elapses for the base to form, and it just happens over and over and over. These are bullet trains. So, all right. So first of all, Mark, thanks for taking the time during this section. You added quite a bit to this, and Mark's going to be back. I'm not sure exactly where, but we're going to have him back somewhere along the line in some subsequent sections. And so we covered the power play, we covered the primary base, the magnitude plays, and the velocity play. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue with more technical analysis. I know this is the fun stuff. We've got more of it, and we'll be back after we take this break.
Okay, guys, that is the conclusion of the power play, velocity play. Really, really exceptional part of Mark's strategy that I love. I know Mark Ritchie loves it, and I know a lot of you have shared that as well. We're going to take a 15-minute break this time. Chance to get you a little more food, break, water, drink, do 10 push-ups, do something to get the blood pumping. But when we do come back is when we'll be starting on page 303. Let's try to do it in 10 minutes, actually, 10 minutes. Page 303, when we come back, will be squats and reversal recoveries. And let's try to do that in 10 minutes at 10:55 local time here, Eastern time. So we'll be back for you then. Thanks.